Hello, it's November 14th, 2023. I'm Joe Weston, and we're here for our global heart practice, our online international global heart practice that we do with one another, create community through what I fondly still call the World Wide Web, to connect with one another and to reinforce through this medium that which already is true and we seem some ways to forget. We have I just saw we had a four-legged join us. That's great to, he's nice. All creatures are welcome for this. And as the four-legged runs by, it's a cat that ran by someone's screen. What it reminds us of is that we are all interconnected. We are all interdependent. And that any moment when we are not having a direct experience of that, that means on some level we are disconnected to, or we're connected to a mental construct of separation. And I want to talk about that today. To go further into that, a lot of the talks I've been doing is really referring to what's been going on in the world, and it's still in part of what I want to discuss. But to remember that our purpose here is to be in community, to have a safe place where we can share what's on our heart, and to practice together, and and to be in alignment and connected with people who share common vision or common goals of being midwives. This idea of holding space and some level a neutral space for what's dying away and from what's being born. And I use the word neutral. I was a little hesitant because neutral can imply that you're indifferent. But on the contrary, as someone who is a good doula or midwife is so incredibly present and connected to what's happening, so incredibly invested. Yet what they're doing is they're holding an important role of objectivity so that the people who are directly involved with the experience, like the mother and the baby and anyone else, they can be fully in their experience to go through their transformative, whatever they're in the middle of, knowing that there is someone there holding an objective space of pure compassion, of fierceness, of alertness, and all of that rolled in, that moments of being gentle, moments of being fierce. And in essence, we can do that when we're called to it, and if we consciously think of it. But the idea is by practicing it, we can just move through the world and be it, what I call compassion in action, without having to go through the efforts of, well, what was that again? And how should I do it? Is simply being it and moving through the world with that. So as I said, I think it was last time that, I don't remember where I said it, but, what has occurred this past month in Israel and in Gaza, and what is unfolding in the Ukraine and other parts of the world, Myanmar, Darfur, in Africa, various parts, what we're being called to, for those of us who want to hold this place of midwife, this is like our black belt. It's like we're being tested in a way that really, and it's nothing to do with other people. It's about us and cultivating our practice, because in the capacity of us being able to hold space for more beings, really, in a sense, it benefits us. It's our practice. No one needs to know that we're doing this practice. You might be suddenly a better manager or leader in the work that you do, or a parent, or a child, or neighbor. So other people will have the direct benefit. But in the end, and this is what I bring a lot from my Buddhist practices and Taoist practices, is the more you cultivate this level of compassion and action and wisdom, the more you feel an authentic kind of happiness and contentment that's not temporary or based on external things. So I'm speaking to people who are here for the first time, but I'm also speaking to the people who have done this for a while. I want to approach this in a different way. I'm glad some of you are here because of this. A lot of the comments that you make bring this up. But as always, what I always say is, where do you currently have power? In a world where it seems like we have no control and power, where can we find our power? And we may not have power today to influence policy and things like that, but where we always have power is in regulating our nervous systems. Where we always have power is cultivating resilience. Where we always have power is how we respond to the stressors. We may not have control of the stressors that are happening around us. Where we do have power is how we respond to them. And where we have power, and I think is really essential at this time, is in cultivating and deepening the relationships we have, and then increasing that to find alliances in surprising places. And those are places where we always have power. We can do this all the time. And I think the one that's really testing many of us at this time is the part of we have the power of how we respond to stressors. Because what I'm seeing play out, and what I'm seeing in the news, I'm seeing with friends in the peer civility meetups that I do with people I talk to, is just a lot of people who are dysregulated and feel a compulsive need to take sides, to demonize, to decide who is the most victim in the situation, who is the most perpetrator in the situation. And I'm not judging, I'm assessing, and I'm certainly not deciding who might be more victim and who might be more perpetrator. Simply saying that these are the patterns that we fall into, like the image that I use with Hamlet, that, you know, we can have all these, we could have taken all these amazing classes at various retreat centers and done all of our inner work, but we get tested. I found that fascinating. I would see it often after coming from a retreat where we're all in our hearts and all understanding that we're all one and all that. And then someone driving me home, and then as soon as someone cut us off, that person just screaming and cursing and yelling. And it's like, okay, what happened to all the work you just did? And just it's that level of disconnect that I want to approach, and that we take a deeper look at how what's playing on, maybe not in our actions and our words, but even in our thoughts. Because, you know, the work we're doing here is that we want to transform, in essence, our thoughts, words, and actions that keep us in separation, to move away from that and self-interest and get us more into compassion and action, that all of our thoughts are focused on compassion. All of our words and our actions are focused on compassion. And that's practice. It's like, you know, learning a sport or something like that. And that's what we're doing with this practice, is to stretch that muscle to be able to hold more beings in our hearts, but not only just hold more beings in our hearts, but to hold them equally, in essence. And why I find that important is that what I'm seeing play out a lot is that the way people are just justifying horrific things based on their mental constructs of what they think is right or wrong, or who's the victim and the perpetrator. To actually hear, I mean, I literally went, when I heard it on the news of someone was being interviewed, and they literally said these words: I have the right to kill those people because ... And when you're caught in the mental constructs of separation and good and bad and victim and perpetrator and all of that, you can't see how horrifically inhumane that is. And I don't know if I brought that up last week, but that's just something that is really I'm focusing on, is to just see that as an example of what our mental constructs can do to keep us from connecting to our hearts and our humanity. And again, I'm not an expert in this. I'm doing my work, and I'm grateful I have my practices, because I can see when I do devolve into vengeance or right or wrong, or wanting to justify, I can justify harming people because I've been harmed. That's never worked for us. It may have temporary benefits, but it's never led to long-term lasting peace or solutions that are beneficial to everyone. And I want to bring this up in the realm of the practice that we do, where, if you know, it's important in this practice that when we get to the global family, we categorize the human family into three categories: into loved ones, strangers, and adversaries. And there's a reason for that. One of it is because it breaks the polarity of seeing the world in a binary way of there's either allies or foes, which many of us do. It's just convenient and safe to view the world from polarity, from either this or that, from binaries. It's convenient. I would say it's lazy, but that there's a little bit of judgment in that. But aside from that, I'll just share that. And that when you, and that's in the fierce civility work, we talk about the power of the pivot. When you introduce another element, you've broken the polarity and you've created space again, and there's creativity and could be movement. So by introducing this idea of stranger, you're getting yourself out of viewing all human beings as either ally or foe, loved one or stranger, because it's much more subtle than that. And I think that's what the message is of what I want to say, is that when we get into binary thinking, when we get into this way of picking sides and all of that, who's the victim, who's the perpetrator, it's a very superficial view of what is happening, and we're missing the intricacies. And I'm writing a new article for the Fulcrum for my Ask Joe advice column, and I found myself writing in that, is that, you know, I've been involved with different kinds of people around the world, different in various countries, different cultures, backgrounds. I've spent almost 10 years now working with people in the Middle East very closely on all sides. And the only conclusion I can come to, based on, and I've done a lot of research on what's happening in the Middle East, and also from my family history, and I've always been interested in world history. The only conclusion I can come to with all of my research on that area is that the more I learn about that area, the more I realize I don't know about what's really happening, and that it is far too complex for any one human being to fully grasp. Therefore, it's important to open, in a sense, to be able to have the humility to say, I can only see it from my perspective. And if I want to fully understand it and grasp it, I have to reach out to people with different perspectives and hear their side and truly hear it and integrate it, and excitingly and creatively debate it, but not for the purpose of winning, simply for the purpose of sharpening our own viewpoints on it and getting a deeper awareness and understanding, which can only activate our hearts in a more compassionate way. So in essence, by introducing stranger, then we don't have to go through this thing of we're only hanging out with people who already agree with us, because we've already established that's not going to solve our world problems. And it's also not going to force us to step into something you see, particularly in Christian dialogue, love thy neighbor. Oh, not love thy neighbor, love thy enemy. Love thy enemy. That's a tough one for some people. Like, I don't want to love my enemy. I can't possibly do it. But this idea of love thy stranger, then that opens it up, that people that you may categorize as the other side may not be your enemy. They may just be someone with a viewpoint not yours, and just as someone you don't know, which makes the threshold of connecting with them and allying with them a lot easier. And in a sense, getting into more the subtle aspects of what is playing out. And I want to flip the practice when we get to it. For those of you who've done it for a while, I'm curious what your thoughts are going to be on that. But because in essence, the purpose of doing the practice every time where we introduce connecting to loved ones, strangers, and adversaries is not so much, it is to eliminate the label, because we've all had a direct experience, many of us here, that when we do this practice long enough, we see that from their side, they're not my enemy. I've basically just put the label enemy on them. The same thing with loved ones and strangers. And the example that I always give is just think about your life partner or someone that you are very close and intimate with, that you met in your adult life. There's someone who is loved one, but 40 years ago, 20 for some of you, maybe 50 for some of you, they were a stranger to you. They didn't change. They're still the same person. What changed is your label you put on them. And that's where we also have power, is to say, as soon as we label someone loved one, stranger, or adversary, we can evaluate and see, are they really a loved one, stranger, and adversary? And if so, how fixed is that? And realize it's not very fixed, and we can shift it if we choose to. That, to me, is what's the hope for this stagnating polarization we're currently in, is the power we have to shift how we are perceiving what is happening. And so this idea of, and I remember we did do a practice once here that was very challenging for a number of people, where I said, what if you were in a burning building, and in the building, you could run out and be safe. That's one choice. Do you run out and leave? There are three people there. One person happens to be a loved one person happens to be a stranger, another person happens to be an adversary. Some of you may remember that. It brought up tears, it brought up pain, because the question is, do you save any of them, or do you just save yourself? That was question one. The second one is, if you know you can only save one person, who do you choose? Now, you can just sit with that. Whatever physiological experience you went through, or emotional experience, that's the purpose of this. It helps you realize where you are stuck in these labels, of what would you choose? Do you choose the loved one? Why? Maybe you do, not right or wrong. And then the third one, and the most provocative, is if you know you can save yourself, you know you can save only one person, and the two people that are most likely to succeed in you saving are stranger and adversary, what do you do? So that's a practice, and you never have to come up with an answer, but being in the tension of that is what expands your capacity and softens the rigidity of your labels, so that we get back to that we are just human beings. All of us, on some level, at the core of us is humanity. Some of us are further away from it. For instance, people who can drop bombs, I would say, are further away from their humanity, or seeing the humanity in others, than those who don't. But in essence, we are all human beings. And the purpose of the practice is to get to what's called equanimity, where, because you don't have those rigid labels of loved one, stranger, and adversary, and you only see other human beings, this is the key. What you have done is you've overcome three of what in Buddhism they call the three poisons, which is attachment, indifference, and aversion. And so the key is, so that's the deeper aspect of this practice that we will do, and that many of you have done, is not so much to let go of our labels of loved one, stranger, and adversary, but to let go of our deep-seated attachment to what we find pleasurable or love, our indifference to things that we have no relationship with, and our aversion to those things that we would label adversary or harmful, or not pleasant, or however you want to look at that. And that is the key. And I want to try something different where, because I remember for years, I would say in all my workshops with respectful confrontation, I would bring in the quote from the Peace Pilgrim, who was this remarkable woman from in the 1950s. I believe she was a nun, and she was just so disheartened by that there was so much war. And she said, I want war to end. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to give up everything. And she started walking around the United States. She says, I'm going to walk around the United States until there's no more war. Well, she walked for her entire life. She was in her 50s in the 1950s, and she walked until in the 80s, when she was in her 80s, to advocate for peace. She wrote beautiful things. If you have a moment, look her up, The Peace Pilgrim. But one thing that she said that has always stuck with me is that we are not going to solve our world war until we each look at our own personal psychological violence and how we are causing that within ourselves, towards ourselves and others. That if we can't do it on a personal level, what makes me think we're going to do it on a global level? And that's where our own personal responsibility comes in. So I want to see where this goes with this practice. I'm going to switch it to see how we look into aspects of ourselves from loved one, stranger, and adversary. And I want you, for those of you who want to take this to the next level, for if you feel like I have no adversaries, when I do this practice, I don't see adversaries, then I would really ask you to just take a moment to see where you take sides. And if you're still taking sides, then the side that you're not taking, you could consider adversary. And that doesn't mean you're bad or you're failing or anything like that. I'm just offering that as a teacher in this practice of how to get you to the next level of a more subtle resonance and energy of this. That in essence, where are you taking sides, whether that's on whatever issue is most passionate for you or most personal for you, wherever you are taking sides, then you are still in the polarity of loved one and adversary. And that there's some fun work to do there. So let's do the practice, and then we'll have time to reflect after. See how this goes. It's an experiment. So as always, with this practice, we're cultivating fierce compassion and resilience. I just discussed, everything we discussed is this idea of fierce compassion. The resilience piece is the practice of what's going on within your system. So in a sense, training yourself to cultivate my definition and our definition here of resilience, which is presence, awareness, balance, and flow. So sitting in a way where you can feel that presence and awareness, and particularly feel the balance in your body, so that and a softness in the body, so that there can be flow. Feeling an elongation in your spine from the tailbone all the way up to the top of your head, maybe tucking in your chin a little bit, chin coming into your chest a little bit, so you can really elongate the cervical vertebrae. Relax your jaw, relax your shoulders, relax your belly. Bringing your attention now, this is what we call power sit, bringing your attention now to your core in your lower belly. Approximately the width of 3 fingers below your navel and 1/3 of the way into the body from the front of the body. Deep in your lower belly, bringing your attention to that spot, an energetic spot, center of gravity, impulse, personal power, and awareness. With this awareness in your core, you're cultivating deeper listening from your core. Become aware of your contact points, parts of your body that are connecting with what you're sitting on and the ground. Feeling the stability under you, using those contact points to actually feeling the pressing down as a way of an indicator of how stable your environment, what your environment is under you. Signaling to the body that you are held. And in that moment, see if you can allow yourself to drop in and be held. No need to hold yourself up, trusting that you are held. Mother Earth, a perfect example of what we're practicing, compassion in action, holding each one of us equally. No favorites, no side taking. And in essence, trusting in that relationship with the earth. Feeling that power of the earth, the stability, checking in, just acknowledging the land that you're on, the space on the planet you are, the privilege and the gift that you have to inhabit that spot at this moment, where so many creatures before you have inhabited that spot for millions of years. The people who have tended to the land that you're currently sitting on in a sacred way. Resting in that. And now with this, with that awareness from your center, coming into more of a connection with yourself, beginning with your physical body. From your center, become aware of your physical body. Listen to the vocabulary of the body, what it's sharing with you. Gather that information. You don't need to do anything with that information. You're simply gathering, listening. Cultivating awareness. From your center, become aware of your emotional body. What emotions are you present to? And in this practice, really to train yourself to really get clear and delineate and feel energetically. Is that sorrow? Is that joy? Is that fear? Without judgment, simply assessing and giving the energy of those emotions space to flow. From your center, become aware of your thoughts. And the important aspect here is to remain connected to your awareness as you observe or listen to your thoughts, that part of you that's not your thoughts. Maintaining a connection with your core, now bringing awareness to your heart, to the middle of your chest, where your heart power resides. Compassion, respect, connection. And from your center and from your heart, connecting with that part of you that has connection with something larger than yourself. Identifying that part within you, whether for you it might be physical or energetic. It's a part of you that has access and connection with something larger than yourself. And as you connect with that part of you from your heart and your center, open up to what is your connection in this moment to something larger than yourself. Allowing energy to flow and emotions to flow. And in how much are you allowing yourself in this moment to rest with that which is larger than yourself, with that level of connection you have. And resting in the earth and resting in that which is larger than yourself. Settling within you, in your heart and your core. And allowing the experience of this so far to now flow out towards into your personal space, out towards the boundaries of your personal space. Feeling those boundaries of your personal space in front of you, behind you, and really getting a sense of in time and space. Is it 4 inches, your boundaries? Is it 4 feet, 12 feet, 1 meter, 15 centimeters? What for you is in this moment the scope of your personal space? Filling it with your heart and your core. And imagining, cultivating this awareness of everything we've done so far, being able to walk through the world with this awareness. And with this awareness, take a full deep breath in through your nose, out through your mouth. With this awareness, maintaining a connection with yourself, now extending out your awareness outside of your personal boundaries to your living space, to your surroundings. Connecting with and building relationship with that in all directions. Smells, sound, temperature, light. placing yourself in context in this moment. And with that awareness of self and surroundings, take a full breath in through your nose, out through your mouth. And from your center and from your heart, becoming aware of those in this meditation circle, those who are here currently joining us on the World Wide Web in various parts of North America, Europe, those who are connecting with us, not through the World Wide Web, but are holding space with us in other parts of the world. Expanding out your awareness and your presence from your heart and your core to connect with them. Noticing the impact you might be having on those in this meditation circle and how the impact they may be having on you. And if that feels safe for you, see if you can rest in that connection. And offering to you that in a sense, those in this meditation circle at this moment provide the function as we go on of being witness, of being support, someone you can rely on and come back to if you get distracted. Because I want to do a variation of the exercise now. So from your center and your heart, before we move on to that, with awareness of yourself, your surroundings, and those in this meditation circle, take a full breath in through your nose and out through your mouth. From this point, I invite you to, from your center and from your heart, to connect with all human beings, but with no labels. Simply just see how many human beings can you hold in your heart at this moment. Anyone that pops up in your head. And if you can't hold every human being in your heart, that's about 8 billion, just the awareness that there are about 8 billion human beings on this planet right now. You're in relationship with them at all times. If you do believe in this idea of interconnectedness and interdependence, there isn't a moment when you're not. And I'd like to get into a bit of courage now and to go within. And with this awareness of self, surroundings, those in this meditation circle, and all human beings, as you go within, I invite you to look at those parts of yourself that you would consider loved one. What parts of you do you consider loved one, or would you say you have an attachment to? And there's no right way to do this or wrong way. Just simply notice who arises in your heart, who in the aspect of parts of you. Be with that. If you can't see specific faces because it's abstract, just a quality or an energy, or maybe a you when you were at a different age, or are going to be a different age, or a fantasy of you. Right now, standing face to face from your heart and your core to the heart and core of the parts of you you would consider loved one. Letting the energy flow and the emotions flow. And from your center and from your heart, connecting with those parts of you that you would consider stranger. Parts of you that you know are there, but you don't have no direct relationship with. Where there might be a certain level of indifference. From your center and from your heart, connecting with their center and their heart. Who shows up or what shows up for you? Is it possible in this moment to activate your heart to overcome the indifference? To cultivate more of a sense of engagement, connection. allowing energy to flow and emotions to flow. And from your center and from your heart, becoming aware of those parts of yourself that you would consider adversaries. Who arises? What aspects of yourself arise? Where you have perhaps a certain aversion towards. In the broadest sense of the word. Parts that you might say sabotage you. Allowing energy to flow and emotions to flow. And as you what's your capacity from your heart to find some level of compassion or understanding for these parts of you? Now see them all, see all of three parts, all the parts of you, the ones that you would delineate as loved ones, strangers, and adversaries, as a reflection of you. And as we've done before, to ask the question to all these parts of you, or to ask yourself, what's needed to overcome my attachment or indifference or aversion to these parts of me, that I can hold them all equally with as much love, compassion, and understanding. With this idea that they all, in a sense, that all just for a moment feeling from your heart that your heart connecting with theirs just melts away those labels. And with the deepest love and tenderness, allow those parts to flow into your heart. Complexity of who you are. And with this sense of renewed sense of understanding the different aspects of yourself, the capacity to melt away those labels to become integrated within you, now reflect that outwards to all human beings. See who arises in your heart, and in how much are you still, and it probably is so, the loved ones you see, the strangers you see, the adversaries you see. Or maybe not. Considering how they are seeing you in this moment. And imagine all you and all human beings taking a big deep breath, and on the exhale, everyone's labels just melt away. So deep inhale. And the exhale, resting into letting go of those labels. Feeling that resonate out to the rest of the planet, to all its creatures, the planet itself. And allowing all human beings to flow into your heart, as if all human beings are simply aspects of yourself. Imagine just what you did before when you did focus on aspects of yourself flowing into your heart. What if you saw all human beings the same way? Different aspects of you. And allow, with this awareness of all human beings in your heart, bring your awareness back to those in this meditation circle. Your support. Allow those in this meditation circle to flow into your heart as you bring your awareness back to your surroundings. Allow your surroundings to flow into your heart as you bring your awareness back to yourself, integrating all of the experience you've just done, flowing through you in all ways into your physical being, your emotional being, your mental being, your spiritual being. And as a way to close this practice, let's take one final breath in through your nose, out through your mouth. When you're ready, slowly open your eyes, look around the room, shake your body. So as always, we started with motivation. We did our practice. Now we have time to reflect. Was the four-legged there for the meditation, Gage? Ah, he or she or he, she or they? Is it a he, she, or they?
She.
She.
Her name's 𝗵𝗶.
𝗵𝗶. Of course, her name is 𝗵𝗶. Does 𝗵𝗶 have any insights into their practice?
She's sending relaxing, calming, nervous system regulating vibes out.
Right. Of course, 𝗵𝗶 probably sees everything in terms of labels of toy, not toy.
Yeah.
Food, not food.
Definitely.
Anybody want to share, aside from the four-leggeds, anybody want to share their experience?
I'd like to share. Just it felt very different to me, the way that you sort of changed things, which I actually really loved. Because I loved the ability to be really present. Like there was no expectation. I don't know what to expect. But as you know, I struggle with myself. I'm always like, you know, have negative things going on in myself, towards myself. And when you said, you know, bring in the adversary, and this part of me just was like, okay, let me, and then I just went, oh, you know what, just give it up. Would you just give it up? Like, it just seemed like it just dropped to the ground around my feet. And I just felt so, you know, whole, really. So I really appreciated that experience. So thank you.
Thank you. I just want to, I mean, I don't know exactly, I'm interpreting what you shared, the way you shared it, but it sounded like the way you spoke to that part of you was fierce compassion. It's just, you know, it's just like fiercely saying, come on, let's just give this up. Is that, yeah?
Yep, absolutely.
I just want to identify that there was fierce compassion in that.
Yes, and it wasn't judgment. It was just like, let it go.
Yeah.
There's no value here. Just let it go.
Beautiful.
So, appreciate it.
Good work. Sorry to judge you, but good work. Anyone else?
I had several experiences. One is that I usually, when we do this practice, am seated on either a couch or on solid ground. And today I didn't move and I stayed on this exercise ball that I'm on. So I had this I had a continuing balancing experience in my body as I was moving through all of the practice. So it was just it felt like another level of engagement that was demanding and yet kind of exciting in a strange way. And I also was aware that I wasn't on ground. I wasn't on a surface that was being held, and yet my butt is more held because I'm in the saddle of this thing. So it was an altogether different physical feeling. So that was kind of cool. And then when you did the triad of internal maneuver, I had a feeling of being in a dream. You know how when people often say when you're dreaming, you are all the parts.
Mm.
And so it was very cool to feel my own personal piece of everything that not everything, but the parts that I project out. So it was 4D for me in some curious ways, which I appreciate. So thanks.
Great.
Mm-hmm.
A question came up for me as I listened and absorbed the practice. The question around the distinction between connection and attachment. I just started to noodle internally on how those are different lived experiences for me. Yeah. Interested if folks have thoughts.
I think you're onto something. I think that's key, because we can be connected without needing to be attached. And the suffering is not I would say our suffering doesn't happen when we're connected. Our suffering happens when we're attached.
But how do we know when we're one or the other? It was the question for me.
Do you have an answer?
Oh, I think actually for me, it was important to hear the question for the first time, because I don't know that I had thought about this question, or I don't know if it had come to me so consciously before. Maybe it has, but like maybe it's been in there somewhere, but it really came to the conscious forefront of my awareness this time. What is different when I'm in connection versus when I'm in attachment? What's different for me? So I think it's something for me to start to pay attention to.
Yeah, that's brilliant.
It's
And if
interesting.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, when you bring that forward, I think of connection as being, might not be the right word, but it feels peaceful. It feels sure. I'm connected. It feels stable and like I'm just there. And attachment feels grasping. So it feels like almost a fear of losing connection that attaches me or something.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts on that?
I don't have thoughts on that, but I can share a little bit about my experience in the meditation. I was very aware of, I was feeling stretched in the triad, as Shelley put it, when it was outside of myself. But the practice of coming internal felt like natural, easy, familiar. And like I knew the inner landscape far better than I did the outer landscape. I don't know if I don't have an evaluation about it. It's just a kind of observation of, I think maybe I divide that up more internally than I do externally. I don't know. So, But I really liked the as within, so without, as without, so within kind of reflection in that. So thanks for that.
Yeah.
Is connecting like a choice and maybe attached is sort of like a result of something else? Like you don't necessarily. I think of connection in more of a positive sense and attached in more of a negative sense somehow. I don't know. Maybe that's not right, but
Yeah, right. And we don't even know why we think of it that way. But there's some kind of emotional quality that Shelley was bringing up that I think is starting to touch on something. But but also you think about like when we're kids, it's a very good thing to be. You wouldn't expect anything less to be attached to your parents, for better or worse. We're attached to our parents, and nobody would look at a kid and be like, no, that's wrong, you shouldn't be doing that. So, but somehow, like when we become adults, there's something about that quality that changes, and now there's this distinction to be made between connection and attachment. So it's sort of, I don't know, I'm having this sense around like spiritual maturity, but I just don't have articulation for this yet. It's just not, it's not clear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll just add to that. Remember that what we're cultivating is presence, awareness, balance, and flow. So I think, is there balance and flow and connection? Is there balance and flow in attachment?
That's exactly what I was thinking. With that, without the presence, awareness, balance, and flow. When you're in that, attachment's almost impossible, but connection is possible because it's alive. To me, that's how I heard it.
I think attachment also plays into this idea of another thing that we tend to forget is that, again, I bring this from my Buddhist teachings, everything is impermanent, or the idea of impermanence, everything is that, and part of our attachment is not wanting that to be true. Like getting older, people dying, relationships changing, labels changing, economic situations changing. And that the more we can be in balance and flow with the fact that everything is changing, that's where we find peace. And wherever we resist that, that's where, again, the word I use is suffering. That's where the attachment comes in. We're not in that flow anymore. At least I just want to say I appreciated you sharing, but I just want to say, you made a are you there, Lisa? It looks like you just froze. Oh, you are there. Yeah. Yeah. You said at the end of what you said, I'm not sure if that's right or not. Just so you know, in this space, you can't say anything right or wrong. You're simply sharing from your heart.
okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah, I think it's important to emphasize that we have the space to share what we want to share. And that I think it's, I bring this a whole chapter in my new book about this, and I'm not saying it's just you, it's all of us, how much time we waste worrying about whether things are right or wrong, or whether people agree or not. Who cares if people agree or not agree with you? Rather just hear what their truth is.
Hey, Joe, I said that to someone the other day, and I think the top of their head blew off. I was like, how about it doesn't matter if we agree or disagree? And they were like, what?
I love when the top of people's head blow off. I love that. Gage, how about you? Any thoughts or anything in your practice?
I think for me, where I'm at, just being in community and having this space to come and do this practice is profound. I think I was feeling today very exhausted and drained. I do a lot of organizing and activism work, and there's not a lot of like calm spaces with a lot of wisdom. It's more, all of it is necessary,
Yeah.
So I don't think I went as deeply reflective as maybe some others did or that I intended to do, but I do feel like I felt safe, like I felt my nervous system have the ability to just relax. So that was profound.
Enough gauge. One of the things, another thing that I find that I'm trying to let go of in terms of not suffering as much is the need to compare. No need to compare. You just expressed a profound experience for you. Experience you, yeah, and to just trust that your experience, however you had it, is so beneficial for all of us. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. And if you have any questions around your activism, just get in touch. I'd love to, if you need any perspective on that.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, well, thank you. Thank you for this. I'm curious for those of you, certainly those of you who have been doing this for a long time, to see if you check back in with that practice of your own internal loved ones, strangers, and adversaries. And I love, Viana, that you said, and that is the key, is that we're not going to eliminate it externally if we're still holding it onto internally in terms of reflection, and vice versa. That we will find more peace within ourselves when we can let go of those labels externally, and we will have more peace outside of us when we can let go of those labels internally. So let's dedicate the energies of this as we come into, well, I think the whole world is going to some level of holiday time in the next few weeks. And what that means for people, particularly for those people who are refugees and are homeless at that time. Will they even have a roof over their heads when the holidays come? May we send energy to them that, as we talked about last week, that they find within themselves their own sense of home, their own sense of family, their own sense of connection. And as we get into these darker months in the Northern Hemisphere, time when we can feel very isolated and alone, that may each and every being remember that, or finds that level back to connection. And once again, just a blessing for the safety and the health of children, the children who are most suffering at this moment. May they be safe. May they be healthy. Okay. So thank you. And as always, if you're not on our mailing list, we're going to put this, there's a bunch of, what do you call those? Links. If you want to get on our mailing list so that you know about upcoming events. Next week, I'll talk about how I want to continue the global heart practice going forward. So if you're here next week, you'll hear that. And if you're on the mailing list, you get the recording of this eventually. And once again, we're plugging the books, Fierce Civility book, the Respectful Confrontation book. If you want to contribute back to what you're receiving from this, purchase 20 or 30 books, and then we're good. Great holiday gifts. And there's links in the chat, and you can also find that on our website. All right, be well, have a good week, and get in touch if anything comes up, and otherwise, see you next week. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.